Welcome to the Lowport Podcast. I am co-host Tim Herron. Following me today and hanging out with me is Josh Solwig.
Hello.
So today, Josh, I would like to talk like specifically about training, and not just like kind of
Boring.
like,
No,
hey,
just kidding.
doing on the range or what kind of drills are you doing, but like specifically, you had a question, and I know you and I both are users of a new kind of like a virtual reality training system called the AceXR system.
Mhm.
I've been using it a lot since January, like right after Christmas when I bought mine. But I know we get a lot of questions. Folks like reach out to me all the time. There's Facebook groups dedicated to it now. There's a whole Discord channel. If you follow the Discord channel, like through Ace, or people like posting up runs, that some are using it more as a game. Other folks are using it like as a maybe a replacement or like a supplement to their dry fire.
There's
And
actually, I just
it's
wanted to add in, there's a big like aftermarket already of people using their own 3D printers and stuff like that to make
oh my god, right?
modified parts for the controllers, different controller profiles that look like different guns. So you can like match your VR gun to the grip of your real gun and all sorts of really cool stuff. So it seems like the community's super active right now, which is cool to
Yeah,
see.
it certainly is. So I've embraced it quite a bit. I know you and I kind of talked about it. I think after I kind of gave you a little bit of nudging, you had also you'd
You're a good
also gotten it
salesman. Yeah.
as well too. But like, so the questions I think a lot of people get though is like, okay, how do you use the damn thing to get a little bit better at shooting? Like, is it just a video game, or how do you supplement your dry fire, or do you replace your dry fire, or are you seeing any sort of uh, are you seeing any improvement or progression like in your live fire training? So I thought I would, I thought this would be a great discussion, or you thought this would be a great discussion, and I'm kind of excited about it. Clearly, so let's talk about it. How are you using Ace, and how much are you using it, and to what extent?
So I guess I've had the ACE system for about 2 months or so now, and I've been
Okay.
using it sporadically, but about probably roughly once or twice a week, I'll probably use it as a replacement to a normal dry fire session. And so over the course of that 2 months, I've shot, I think, just shy of 40,000 virtual rounds. One of the cool features of the tool is you get, I think it's a weekly update email or something like that, that gives you the
Hmm.
running total of how many drills you've completed, how many rounds you fired, and some other metrics like that. And it's pretty cool to see that I've shot 40,000 rounds um, virtually in 2 months. Like for me, that is well over two, probably closer to like 4 years of live fire round count. And so just getting that really trigger time behind the gun, I think is worth something first and foremost. And certainly with the VR system, one shortcoming is that the gun isn't actually recoiling physically in your hand. So you can still kind of cheat yourself with grip and stuff. That's one thing it might not necessarily help you with. But in the game, the sight and the gun are moving as you're shooting. And, where that red dot or that sight is, the bullet hits in the game. So you still have to have the visual discipline when you're using the game, even though the gun isn't physically recoiling. And
I
so,
agree.
you know, people go back and forth on how important recoil mitigation is, but I think the current kind of zeitgeist is just hold the gun firmly, don't try to eliminate all recoil, and shoot when you have an appropriate sight picture for that target that you're shooting at. And so, with that the VR training, I think, is in very good alignment with that shooting philosophy, which I personally think is a good one. And so, for me, I think the tool so far has been well worth the money. And for training everything having to do with the visual, I think it is a benefit. And I don't think it would ever totally replace traditional dry fire with my exact gun, being able to throw real reloads and stuff like that. Change the focal planes of my eye and things like that. But I think it could certainly be reasonable for somebody to train almost 50-50 traditional dry fire with VR training and probably see an improvement in their shooting. So that's kind of my read, not having used it as much as you. But I think it's a great tool. And for the money, I think you get a heck of a lot out of it. I mean, 40,000 rounds in 2 months simulated, that's something.
The cool thing is it gives you all of that data, right? So, and in your little range hut, if you turn around to your right corner, about your 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the back corner, it also has like a bulletin board that kind of tells you how many rounds you fired through it, and how much money you actually would have saved, if you attach, say, 28 cents a round to each of those rounds that you fire. So, I mean, it's a huge thing. Like, considering that Ace itself costs about $240 for a year subscription with the pistol. That's about what the typical cost of a case of 9mm ammo is. Yeah. And seeing the return on that investment, like, okay, for the cost of one case of ammunition, I've been able to shoot in my setup. I've been able to shoot 218,000 rounds since January. So we just finished up March. So in 2 months, I've shot 218,000 rounds. That's a lot of trigger presses. And so, and
there's
sometimes
the GM work ethic. That's what we wanted to see.
A lot of some like non-purposeful trigger presses, but a lot of very purposeful trigger presses as well. So,
well, let's talk about the non-purposeful for a little bit, because one of the as we've already talked a little bit about, it can be a very valid and helpful training aid, but a 100%. Lot of the fun in Ace is the leaderboards and trying to do inhuman hit factors on some of these things. So, and you're at the top of a lot of these leaderboards or close to it. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about the game aspect?
I have got two approaches to how I utilize Ace in my own training. So I do have a dedicated belt with a holster set up for my Ace controller or my Ace pistol, to do, to really work on traditional dry fire methodology, right? So everything from drawing the gun, presenting it, making sure that I'm finding the sights or finding the dot directly on presentation. I can work on draw to the first shot. I can work on some build drills. So anything that you would do within like a real live fire session or even a dry fire session, you can do with the, from the holster within Ace. Mm-hmm. So I would say 70 to 80% of my Ace training is, like Velcro and strapping on my belt, putting the gun in the holster, and really working all of those skill sets, like and concepts with a good methodology, like a good regimen, right? And it shows. But if you're wanting to like beat the best leaderboards, scores, yeah, you got it. Like, that's when it's like, okay, you're going to start everything from like a low ready, hands on the gun, grip built. You're trying to race the timer to the, to the absolute first shot, of the beep. And you're really like, you're in kind of like what Steve Anderson would talk about, like being in speed mode, or kind of what I talk about, like being in exploration mode. Like, my goal is to just explore just how fast I can press the trigger, how fast I can transition from one target to the next. And a lot of times it's hooking up, it's like, oh man, I was able to do that in this amount of speed. And sometimes the leaderboards, I think that's where some guys, like, they get really trapped into just chasing the leaderboards and kind of treating it like just like a video game, going as fast as you possibly.
Just doing that will hurt you, but it is fun to do once in a while. That's for sure.
Absolutely. So I believe truly, just like even in your regular live fire and dry fire practice, there should be an opportunity within those realms of practice to explore your limits. And I tell folks all the time, like, how often are you going to the range and pushing yourself to the point where you miss, and you might miss a lot. And most people are like, I don't want to miss, missing hurts. It hurts the soul. It doesn't feel very good. I don't feel like I'm learning anything from the misses. And there's so many things that you're missing out on, not pushing your skill set or progressing your skill set to that uncomfortable level where
Mhm.
you're learning from the misses, or you're learning from the deltas, or you're learning from the, hitting the occasional no shoots or hardcover targets, where I think many of us are afraid to do those things in live fire because ammo's expensive, right? Like resources are very precious. Whereas like in Ace, it's like all I have to do is press A and it resets everything and I can try it again, or oh, I had a bad score, let me try that again. So I think there's there's some gravity to really pushing and exploring an ace that's kind of freeing, because you're like, well, I don't have a round count that like I came to the range with 300 rounds today, so let me make the most use of it. It's like, nope, I turn it on and I've got an hour. Today I'm going to work on exploration. I'm going to explore this drill, and I'm going to work as hard as I possibly can to exploit every efficiency I possibly can on that particular stage. And sometimes there's a lot to learn in those things too. I think for a lot of people, they learn that they're mentally holding themselves back because they're afraid to visually, like, to go beyond their visual processing speed. And so
Yeah,
that can be
all great
freeing.
points. I just wanted to make a comment that some people complain about USPSA classifier high hit factors being shot out, blown out. They're too high because people have had too many runs at them over the years. Well, you haven't seen
Sure.
nothing yet until you see an ace leaderboard and you see high hit
Oh
factors
yeah.
in like the 20s and crazy things beyond that, because
Oh,
at a
absolutely.
classifier you can only shoot it once or two or three times in a match, right? If you buy some of the reshoots. Well,
Opportunity to
give
kind of just
people unlimited ammo and the ability to shoot a classifier infinite times in their underpants in their living room, and you're going to see some high freaking hit factors. That's what we're
that is true.
seeing.
That's
Yeah,
100% true.
yeah,
But the great thing about it is, like, instead of having to wait until you go to a major match or you go to a local match to shoot a classifier and you shoot it once, and you're always playing that, man, I wonder if that would have been better to take those targets on the move, or I wonder if it'd have been better to shoot that left to right versus right to left, or, like, this is an opportunity to get to explore those things. I think it also crosses over to your live fire, because now you've got like a lot more confidence in your ability to process information faster, as well as, like having that confidence of like, oh, I've done this 100 times before. Like
yeah,
I know I can shoot that activator and shoot these two targets and then come back and shoot that swinger, or, that no shoot, or not that no shoot, that bobber target or that max trap, because you've experienced what that's like, in the comfort of your own home over and over and over again, to really build that confidence or build that skill layer, to a higher level. So, but again,
absolutely.
it can get really tempting to just fall into the trap of like, I want to just beat the best scores all the time. And sometimes it's like, okay, now you're taking it away from the useful training tool that it is. And you're like, well, maybe today I'm not even going to worry about putting on the holster and working from the draw, because, I see that Josh beat me on the leaderboard. So I need to go beat him on the leaderboard. And that can be, like you said, that can be a little limiting, like that now it can be kind of damaging to your shooting,
That's
because
that's like that's like
all bets
candy.
are off.
That's like candy. But the regular
Right.
training in ACR is like your steak and potatoes, right? That's
Right.
candy once in a while. Yeah,
But so no, I use it as a supplement. I'm definitely not using it as a replacement from my typical dry fire regimen or dry fire training. Um, Sometimes I will use it as a replacement if the weather's bad and I can't get out to live fire. It just makes more sense, and I might do a 30 to 45 minute session with dry fire, like with my actual gun magazines and things, and dry fire, and then like, okay, now I'm going to put on my ace, headset, and now I'll work the things I was working in dry fire, I'll work, kind of in a pseudo or hybrid live fire, VR session for, 20, 30, 40 minutes as well. So like I said, I use it as a supplement to things. There are absolutely days where, like, if I get a beautiful day, I don't care anything about like putting on the ace system and working within that. Like, I'm going to go take 500 or 600 rounds of ammo and go outside and go shoot in my, shoot at my range. And sometimes I'll follow up a shooting session with dry fire, and sometimes I'll follow up a shooting session with like an ace session, and, in lieu of it. But yeah, I mean, I use it like kind of like as the holy trinity You've got live fire, you've got dry fire, and you've got ACE. Whereas before, it's always just been live fire and dry fire. So the great thing about ACE is it gives people no excuses and gives them every opportunity to press the trigger. Like you're getting trigger pulls in. The great thing is too about the ACE is like the controller, like the regular Quest 3 controllers are extremely sensitive to any input whatsoever. So how you tilt the gun up to your eye can make the difference between whether the dot's going to be in the glass if you're shooting a red dot pistol, or the dot being in the center of the window. And leading with your eyes, a lot of visual acuity, a lot of visual exercises as well, like getting your eyes to shift to the next target and bringing the dot to exactly where you're looking next. You're still looking at little fine predominant spots on targets to place the dot, to place the gun to. Like all things are equal when it comes to visual processing stuff, which I find that extremely beneficial. And the great thing is too, like if people are on a budget, like I said, for the cost of one case of ammo, now they've got no excuses. Like it takes 5 minutes to turn it on, go through a couple of the little entry, like selecting ACE on the app and then, firing up ACE and logging into the system, and you're ready to go. You can work on things like with movement. There's a lot of drills that have you working on footwork and things. So if you've got space in your house to be able to without the confines of, I don't know, bookshelves and end tables and things like that, you can set up all of the moving stages with movement. Or you can, like, I solidify one spot in my bedroom and work on everything from a stationary platform. And like I said, I found it very beneficial. But again, you're right; it's very tempting too to just want to shoot it like a video game too, and like, okay, who set the top score? How do they get that top score? And how do I beat that top score? But that can also be good, in some ways. That can also be good for exploration as well. Like, and I share a lot of things like on the Discord channel. I'll share some stage runs. I'll video cast it to my phone, and then like edit and paste them up to and share them on the Facebook groups and things like that as well. So people are like, how the hell did you shoot that score that high? So, and then the great thing about shooting the score that high for me is it doesn't become a one and done thing. Like I'm not just trying to hero or zero it. It's like if I set that high hit factor, then I expect, can I do it again? And can I do it again? And can I do it again? So I think that the thought or the training process is is where it should be, where it's like, okay, it's not just about a one and done thing, but it then becomes about how can I be consistent with it? Like, can I turn it off and come back tomorrow and then just immediately cold, can I put that same stage run together? And I think that's what we're all looking for is consistency in our shooting. And ACE, I believe, is a great way to help explore that as well.
Sure. Well, a couple things. So you're a big proponent of calculating hit factor when practicing,
Absolutely.
which I think is correct, right? Like you should evaluate yourself in practice by the metric you're evaluated by at the match, right? That it only makes sense. Of course, actually
Yep.
calculating hit factor out on the range is kind of a drag. You have to pull a practice score or punch it into your phone really quick. It
Get a
definitely takes
calculator app
time.
open on your phone. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's always
yeah. But with Ace, every single run, the hit factor is instantly calculated for you.
instantly.
You can see your hits highlighted on the target. Your time is there. Like everything is just at a glance computed instantly. And so I think that is a really big time saver and a nice convenience of the electronic
Yes.
platform. And
100%.
because I have that, um, it's easy to be lazy, at least for me in live fire, and just not do the hit factor math. But since it's right there in Ace, I find myself uh, training more like how you and I have trained sometimes when I've come out to your range and we're actually
Right.
being diligent and computing the hit factor. And it's incredible the patterns you start to notice when you're actually doing that. And so, for instance, I'll usually, if I'm trying a new drill in Ace or something like that, I'll just shoot it at something like you might say is my match mode, where I feel like I can consistently shoot it, and I kind of will do that a few times and find what my plateau is, and usually I'm pretty consistent around that hit factor number
Mhm.
because I'm doing that my match mode, right? And usually it's pretty hard to exceed that until I go into the exploration mode. And then I go crazy basically for a few runs, and I just do it as fast as I can. I move, if there's movement, I get through as fast as I can. I'm pulling the trigger, transitioning hyper aggressively, doing all that. And usually the points fall apart. Maybe once in a while I hook up. But usually you have a really high standard deviation on hit factor doing that. But after 3 to 5 runs of doing that, if I go back to match mode, your baseline of that hit factor jumps up for your match mode. It's
100%.
amazing
Hundred percent.
the real time development you can observe, and there's a practice effect, sure, like you're running the drill over and over again. But like it,
But the great thing, even is
I
like
think it's
running.
more than that. Yeah,
But even the thing about running the drill over again, like I said, revisit the drill 3 or 4 days from now, and then go shoot it again as like your cold entry. You'll also find the same things. You're like, there's consistency there. Like you're acknowledging and recognizing patterns. Which and that's what shooting really is pattern recognition.
yeah. And there's, I mean, basically no cost to doing that with the VR
Yep.
platform.
Yep.
So you might feel guilty just like throwing rounds in live fire, but there's nothing to worry about in Ace. So it's fun. And I'll do other kinds of experiments too. If I feel like I'm shooting too inaccurately, I'll do the opposite. Instead of going, balls to the wall, crazy time pushing, I'll just, push for accuracy, be very diligent about looking at the right spots on the targets, et cetera, et cetera. Do that for a few runs, come back to match mode, and usually see an improvement in points across the board. So it's nice to be able to do that in your living room for basically zero cost. So
I agree. I agree.
yeah,
Like I
it
found
for
I found
me.
some significant benefit in it. So how that transfers like directly to my shooting, like I think people just want the answer of like, okay, you've invested $300 to $500 in this setup, right? So it's $240 for a subscription for a year. And if you don't have a VR headset, you're going to have to invest $200 to $500 on a like a Quest 2 or Quest 3 as well. So I mean, it's a significant investment. I've got a Quest 3, and then I bought the VR setup, so I'm in it for like $740. It's like the cost of a pretty decent pistol, but but I think people they initially want that like, okay, for that investment, how much true progression am I going to see using this like 3 or 4 times a week? Like when I go to the range, am I going to immediately start shooting grandmaster level scores? My answer to that is no, you are not, because you still have other things to contend with, right? Like actual movement, weather conditions, um, visual acuity to things at distance, right? Recoil, and recoil mitigation that you've got to deal with and contend with as well. If you're constantly doing things like from the low ready and ace, and you're like now you're not working on your draw because you've completely replaced dry fire with ace. Now you're getting a bad grip on the draw because you're not dry firing appropriately to really refine those things. Then you're not going to find much value in it, as far as like how it transfers over. But as far as like, okay, I've been doing this for 3 weeks, and now when I go shoot this match or I go shoot this drill, I'm seeing a 25 or a 35 or 45% improvement on it. I I would be I would be remiss to say that like my waters haven't been tainted just a little bit, because it's not like I'm not a new shooter. I'm not somebody that just picked up a pistol for the first time 5 months ago, and also, and had some scientist give me the ACE system and said, "Hey, you're going to work on this first, and then you're going to see these immense goals." So, I mean, like I'm chasing, even in my real time work, in live fire, I may be chasing tenths of a second at something, or hundredths of a second at something, or tenths of a hit factor at something that Ace may help me realize, but it's not going to be like, oh, because I started shooting Ace, I'm seeing a 3.4 point per second hit factor improvement on the El Presidente drill, and it's all in part because of Ace. Like if you're looking for those kind of numbers, sorry folks, I can't give those numbers to
Yeah,
you because
those are beginner gains numbers, but I
100%.
think it works. It allows you to train things that are in some ways difficult to train in traditional dry fire.
I
So
agree.
you said it well. It's a perfect supplement. I think Like I
Supplement,
said,
not a replacement.
yeah,
Supplement.
at the beginning, I maybe my opinion will change the more I play around with it and the more feedback I see from match performance and stuff like that. But I still feel like you need to spend probably at least half of your time working traditional dry fire, having the feel for the real equipment, the weight of it, everything, the grip, the index, the pressures, all of it. But I think a lot of the visual feedback from actually watching a dot or a sight bounce in ACE
Yes,
is is something a little bit different. So it's worth a pretty significant proportion of your at home practice time. Um,
absolutely.
and I say at home because not everybody has a range in their backyard, Tim, where they can just go shoot live fire. So for most people, home means bullets aren't going off except once in a great while when you don't check your chamber, which is fine. Everybody. No, I'm
Right.
just kidding. Don't do that, people. Always check your chamber. Yeah.
That is true.
And dry fire towards your least preferred neighbor's home
Right.
in that
Or at
direction.
least the wall that you don't mind rebuilding if you have to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and one other thing I don't think we've talked about yet with ACE, which is pretty cool, is that it doesn't have to be a solitary thing. You can create a room and then have other people join and shoot with you, and they appear as like a little cartoonish kind of avatar. And so you can run a drill, then your buddy can step into the shooting area or the shooting box and run the same drill, and you guys can go back
So
and forth.
they like Ace hosts matches on Thursday evenings to
Thursday, yeah,
to entice people. Like on Thursday nights, I think they're like 5 o'clock Central or something like that, or maybe seven. Maybe they're like 7:30 Central. So it's like 5:30 or 6:30 or whatever it is our time. But yeah, they post those in the Discord and they'll give you a room code, and so they'll get 15 or 20 people, and everybody shoots like a 5 stage or 6 stage match. And so there, it's like where now you're getting the match pressure as well. Like everybody's
yeah.
standing there on the range watching you. You know, are you going to just swing for the fences on this thing, or are you going to shoot to a level which you've got consistent, like consistent efficiency, or not efficiency, but like consistent progression on something, and that's
Yeah,
pretty cool, or execution on things. That's pretty
yeah.
fun as well.
Match mode. So yeah,
I've
I
actually
keep forgetting
I don't
to check in on the
train.
Discord to get in on the Thursday matches, but I really want to. It seems so fun. I
They're
have
super fun. I'm
with my
always
buddy
generally
Drew. Yeah, we've done a room with just the two of us, and even that was a lot of fun. So it was pretty great.
So
I think the match
I've
would
done
be awesome.
online training sessions with folks as well. So I mean, like
Mm,
even with the avatar, you don't have any arms on it. It's like you see little cartoonish bodies, but like when you're talking, your lips move, and so they match what you're saying. So like you can see when somebody's eyes are averting one way or the other. You can see how they're presenting the gun, if they're hunting for a dot because their grip or their structure's been compromised. If they tilt their head to get their head behind the gun. I mean, all of those little nuances you can pinpoint even in ACE. So I've been using it as a training tool to work with people virtually, like in their shooting. So like I said, I see a ton of value in it. Other people, they're like, I tried it for 10 minutes. I didn't think I saw that much value in it. Yeah, to each their own. Like I really like it. And I'm going to continue to use it as long as I can. So
yeah, I think for the money, even if you don't already have a MetaQuest 2 or a MetaQuest 3, if you buy the A system and you diligently train with it, you're going to see a lot more benefit than a couple cases of ammo or buying that new gun, especially that, over the long term, certainly. So
I would agree wholeheartedly.
for one, highly recommend it. And I will just say I have the MetaQuest 2 because I've had that headset for a while and it works good enough. But I have tried my buddy Drew's Quest 3. And I think if you're starting from scratch, definitely go with the 3. I know it's maybe, I don't know what it is, $200 more expensive
It's
or
about
something
double
like
the
that.
cost. So a Quest 2
Okay.
is like $300 or $250, and a Quest 3 is about 500.
I think it's worth it if you're really going to be serious about using ACE as a training tool because the the spatial resolution is just a little bit better. So the picture looks better, and then it runs the game faster in terms of the refresh rate. So it appears smoother On the Quest 2, the refresh rate or the frames per second is just slow enough that sometimes that choppiness is right at the level of perception, and it can kind of, I think, slow you down sometimes. But it's very, very smooth on the Quest 3. So if you're starting from scratch, definitely get that. If you already have the 2, you're still going to get great training value out of it. So I wouldn't worry about
100%.
upgrading necessarily as a matter of course. But that would be my observation and my recommendation.
Excellent. Excellent.
Cool. Anything else to say about Ace?
I don't have anything else to say about Ace. Like I said, the main thing is like it is a supplement. It's not a replacement for dry fire. But if you're a
Do
guy
you
that's
have a
like, man,
virtual rival now?
you get on the dry fire, you get on the dry fire wagon for like, 2 weeks, and then you're like, dry fire gets boring. The great thing about Ace is it kind of rejuvenates that desire to want to just get behind a gun and work and put in
It's something different. Yeah. And there's no resetting in Ace, which is a big one.
Oh man,
Other
no
than hitting
base
the A
station
button.
resetting, no bad weather. It's awesome.
So do you have a virtual rival? Do you have a rival? Somebody who's always
A
chasing you in the
virtual
leaderboards and you
rival.
just
Yeah, I
want
do have a couple. I
to
mean, not
crush
like,
them?
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, so there's a couple of guys. There's a guy named Make Ready PT. His name's Anthony Villanueva. In real life, he's out in California, and Anthony is a freaking beast on Ace. Like, so it's like he sets some times on some of those things or sets the leaderboards up where I'm just like, I can't even, like, he makes me work for it. There's sometimes I can't. Nope, I got to give him that one. He owns the high score on that particular stage, which is good. So
Test them for PEDs. I don't believe it. It's not legit.
right.
Pee in a cup now.
So,
Hey,
but no,
esports is serious. Maybe there's something. Maybe this is a good vector for practical shooting to expand now that it's actually in the form of a very fun VR
I
video
would
game.
agree.
So who
I would
knows what
agree.
we'll see. All right. Well, remind me for the Thursday match if you can. I think I'm going to try to do it this week.
Cool. No, that'd be awesome. That'd be awesome.
Sweet. Well, maybe I'll see your virtual avatar there Thursday.
My little avatar. I hope so.
Okay. Well, Tim, thanks for giving us the lowdown on Ace. Like I said, I'd recommend if you've got the cash to invest in it, you're going to get more out of it than a couple cases of ammo or a new gun or anything like that. So get after it.
We'll see you guys.
Have a good one, everybody. See ya.